As an aspiring musician with dreams of shredding on a legendary electric guitar, I spent hours scouring Craigslist for the perfect deal. It was on a dark, ominous Halloween night that I stumbled upon an ad that seemed too good to be true, promising my dream guitar at a shockingly low price. Little did I know that my desire for the ultimate instrument would plunge me into a terrifying and otherworldly nightmare. The ad was titled, "Halloween Special Vintage Electric Guitar, Must Go." It featured a photo of a stunning midnight blue guitar with a body that gleamed like a sapphire. The price was incredibly low, and the description claimed that it was a vintage masterpiece. My heart raced with excitement. I immediately reached out to the seller, who went by the username Stratmaster. To my surprise, I received a prompt response, and we quickly arranged a meeting for midnight in a quiet, secluded area on the outskirts of the city. Friends warned me that it sounded sketchy, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity. The Halloween night was fittingly eerie. The moon was hidden behind ominous clouds, casting long, sinister shadows across the city. As I drove to the designated location, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding, as though I was entering a dark and twisted tale. The meeting place was an old, dilapidated warehouse, standing alone in a desolate industrial area. The tall, grim structure loomed ominously in the night, and I shivered as I stepped out of my car. The air was thick with silence, the only sound being the faint drizzle of rain that seemed to hang in the air. The darkness around me was impenetrable, and the ominous surroundings stirred a deep sense of unease. As I entered the warehouse, the creaking of the rusted door reverberated through the empty space. The only source of light came from a dim, flickering bulb that swayed gently overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I realized that I was completely alone. "Hello, I'm here for the Strat," I called out, the sound of my voice echoing eerily in the vast chamber. Silence was my only response, and I felt a growing sense of unease. I considered turning back, but the thought of missing out on the guitar I'd been dreaming of for so long was too much to bear. I ventured deeper into the warehouse, my footsteps echoing through the cavernous space. The air grew increasingly oppressive, and I was overcome by a sense of being watched, of something lurking in the shadows. I finally stumbled upon a small stage at the far end of the warehouse. On the stage was a single spotlight that illuminated an empty chair. Beside it, a solitary guitar case lay open, revealing the stunning midnight blue instrument I'd seen in the ad. I approached the guitar cautiously, a sense of dread gnawing at my senses. Just as I reached out to take it, the spotlight flickered and a low, haunting melody filled the air. It was as though the guitar was calling out to me, its strings vibrating with an otherworldly energy. My heart raced as I watched the guitar play itself, its strings moving as if guided by invisible hands. The haunting melody hung in the air, filling the space with a chilling, ethereal sound. As the last notes of the melody faded, the guitar fell silent, and I stood frozen in awe and terror. The spotlight dimmed, leaving only a faint glow in the darkness. That's when I heard a voice, soft and whispering like a ghostly murmur. "You have come for the guitar," it said, the words sending a shiver down my spine. I turned towards the source of the voice, and there, sitting in the chair on the stage, was a figure cloaked in shadows. The dim light revealed nothing but a pair of eyes that gleamed like coals, set within an impenetrable darkness. "I have," I replied, my voice quivering. The figure rose from the chair, its form shrouded in mystery. "To possess this guitar," it said, "you must make a pact with the otherworldly forces that reside within it." My heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and fear. "What do I have to do?" I asked. The figure reached out and handed me the guitar, its strings humming with a strange spectral energy. "Play," it instructed, "and make your pact." I hesitated for a moment, then began to strum the guitar's strings, my fingers guided by an unseen force. The music that emerged was haunting and ethereal, like a lament from the beyond. As I played, the warehouse seemed to transform around me. The shadows deepened, and the walls of the chamber faded away, revealing a vast, desolate landscape. The moon above was a blood-red orb, casting a hellish glow over the surreal, nightmarish scene. I was no longer in the warehouse, but standing in a place that defied reality. Grotesque, otherworldly creatures lurked in the darkness, their eyes filled with malevolence. The sky above crackled with eerie electric energy, and the ground beneath my feet seemed to pulse with a dark, ominous power. Fear gripped me, and I tried to stop playing, to break free from the spectral pact, but the guitar compelled me to continue. The unearthly music resonated with the nightmare around me, and the very world seemed to bend to its tune. The figure in the shadows spoke again, its voice filled with an eerie, otherworldly power. "Your pact is sealed," it said. "The guitar is yours." As the last note of the haunting melody faded, the warehouse reappeared around me. I was back in the dimly lit chamber, the guitar still in my hands. The figure had vanished, leaving me alone with the instrument. I stumbled out of the warehouse, the guitar now in my possession, and returned to my car. The air was heavy with the haunting memory of the pact I had made, and the guitar's strings seemed to hum with an unsettling energy. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had brought something otherworldly into my life. The guitar played eerie melodies on its own, and strange shadowy figures seemed to linger in the corners of my vision. I sought the advice of experts in the supernatural, who told me that the guitar was a vessel for dark forces that had been unleashed. To break the otherworldly pact, I would have to return the guitar to the warehouse. On a moonless night, I ventured back to the desolate warehouse, my steps hesitant and my mind filled with dread. I placed the guitar on the stage, just as the figure had done, and I began to play. The haunting melody I played seemed to resonate with the spectral energies that surrounded me. As the last chord reverberated through the chamber, the figure materialized before me. Its eyes gleamed like coals, and it reached out to take the guitar. I could feel the malevolent energy leaving the instrument, and the curse I had unwittingly unleashed began to dissipate. With a final haunting smile, the figure faded into the shadows. I left the warehouse, my heart heavy with the memories of that fateful Halloween night. I had broken the otherworldly pact, but the nightmare I had experienced would forever haunt my dreams, a chilling reminder that some deals are too good to be true, and that the pursuit of a dream can lead to the most terrifying places imaginable. Renting an out-of-town Airbnb for an epic Halloween party was a plan my friends and I had been eagerly awaiting for months. We envisioned a night of costumes, music, and revelry in a picturesque countryside mansion. But as Halloween night unfolded, the adventure took a chilling turn, and the memories of that night have haunted us ever since. The Airbnb was a grand old estate nestled in the woods, surrounded by ancient trees and a tranquil lake. Its architecture exuded a faded elegance, with creaking wooden floors, ornate chandeliers, and a sprawling ballroom, perfect for our celebration. The place felt charming during the day, but as night fell, the grandeur of the mansion took on an eerie quality under the pale moonlight. My friends and I had decked out the mansion with cobwebs, jack-o'-lanterns, and spooky decorations. We donned our most elaborate costumes, from vampires to witches, and the atmosphere was electric as the guests began to arrive. As the night progressed, the party seemed to be a success. Laughter and music filled the mansion, and the dimly lit hallways cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. We danced, played games, and indulged in an array of festive treats, all while reveling in the Halloween spirit. Around midnight, things took a turn for the bizarre. I had left the ballroom to fetch more ice for the drinks when I heard whispers in a language I couldn't understand. I followed the sound down a long corridor, illuminated only by the occasional flicker of a sputtering candle. The whispers led me to a hidden room, its heavy wooden door slightly ajar. My curiosity got the best of me, and I cautiously pushed it open. Inside, I discovered an old, dimly lit library filled with dusty tomes and ancient relics. In the center of the room, I found a circle of people in ornate robes, their faces obscured by masks. They were chanting in unison, their voices growing louder and more fervent with each passing moment. I couldn't make out the words they were saying, but the atmosphere in the room was heavy with an oppressive energy. As I watched in shock, one of the masked figures, their robe adorned with intricate symbols, stepped forward. In their hands, they held a wicked-looking knife, and with a swift motion, they sliced their palm, letting the blood drip into a chalice. The chanting grew more frenzied, and I could feel the darkness in the room intensify. My heart pounded as I realized I had stumbled upon something that was far beyond my understanding. Panic set in, and I backed away from the room, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. I rushed back to the ballroom, determined to put the strange encounter behind me. I returned to the party, but my unease lingered. The whispers in the mansion had grown louder, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. I tried to shake off the eerie encounter as a Halloween prank, but the sense of dread persisted. As the night wore on, the party took a chilling turn. Guests began to report strange experiences, a sense of being watched, whispers in empty rooms, and cold spots that seemed to move with a purpose. The mood of the party grew uneasy, and the revelry had been replaced with fear. My friends and I huddled together, discussing the unsettling events of the night. We contemplated leaving, but the thought of venturing out into the dark woods and abandoning our rented mansion was equally unsettling. Just as we were deciding to call it a night, the lights in the mansion flickered and went out. Panic spread through the guests as the darkness swallowed us whole. Someone stumbled and fell, the sound of glass shattering echoing through the hallway. We fumbled for our phones, using their feeble light to guide us, and that's when we realized that the doors to the mansion had all been locked from the outside. We were trapped inside, and the whispers and strange occurrences intensified. We heard footsteps in the darkness, shuffling and echoing as they approached. The figures from the library, still clad in robes and masks, emerged from the shadows. Their chanting had taken on an eerie, unholy quality, and their steps were slow and deliberate. As they encircled us, panic set in, and we tried to break free. But they were relentless, their grasp icy and unyielding. In the dim light of our phones, I could see their faces beneath their masks, twisted and grotesque. The figures led us to the hidden room where the ritual had taken place. The chalice, now filled with blood, rested on an altar. They motioned for us to kneel, and the chanting grew louder and more intense. We were powerless to resist, trapped in their sinister ritual. As the chanting reached a fever pitch, the air seemed to crackle with malevolent energy. The very room pulsed with darkness, and I could feel a presence far beyond our comprehension. My friends and I exchanged terrified glances, realizing that we were in the midst of something far more sinister than any Halloween prank. With a final incantation, the figures began to chant a name that sent a shiver down my spine. The room filled with an oppressive force, and I could feel it reaching into the depths of our souls. Just as it seemed our fate was sealed, the lights in the mansion flickered back to life, and the figures recoiled in terror. The doors to the mansion had been unlocked, and we fled the room, racing into the night. As we stumbled out of the mansion, we could hear the figures' screams of despair echoing through the night. We made our way through the dark woods, our hearts pounding and our minds reeling from the horrors we had witnessed. We reported the events to the local authorities, but they found no trace of the figures or evidence of the ritual. Halloween night had always been my favorite time of year, a night filled with the promise of spooky tales and eerie encounters. But on one fateful Halloween night, I had an experience that went far beyond the realm of ordinary horror stories. I was spending the evening with my friends in a cabin nestled deep within the remote woods of a quiet mountain town. The wind howled outside, and the eerie glow of the jack-o'-lanterns cast long, flickering shadows across the wooden walls. As the night grew darker, we gathered around a roaring fire, sipping warm cider and sharing ghost stories. The atmosphere was festive, but we couldn't help but feel a creeping unease as the tales became increasingly unsettling. One of my friends, Sarah, began a story about the Navajo legends of skinwalkers. She described them as sinister shapeshifters with the ability to transform into animals, often using their powers for dark and malevolent purposes. While the legends were fascinating, we dismissed them as folklore, meant to send shivers down our spines. It was well past midnight when we decided to venture outside. The full moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the dense woods that surrounded the cabin. We thought it would be fun to explore the darkness on Halloween night, but little did we know that we were about to step into the realm of the unknown. As we roamed the woods, the air grew cold and the silence was punctuated by the occasional hoot of an owl. We laughed and shared stories, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over us. That's when we heard it, a distant, mournful howl that sent a chill down our spines. "Must be a wolf," my friend Tom said, trying to reassure us, but the howl seemed unnatural, an eerie and haunting sound that echoed through the woods. As we continued our walk, I noticed something strange in the distance. A figure was moving among the trees, its shape shifting and undulating like a wisp of smoke. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, and a feeling of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. "Guys, do you see that?" I asked, my voice quivering. My friends turned to look, their faces growing pale as they witnessed the bizarre sight. The figure seemed to move with an unnatural fluidity, its shape morphing and changing as it drew closer. The howling grew louder, and I could see that the figure was drawing closer to us. Panic set in, and we turned to flee, but it was as if the woods themselves were conspiring against us. The path we had taken seemed to have vanished, the trees shifting and closing in around us. With our hearts pounding and the feeling of an otherworldly presence drawing near, we realized that we were lost in the dark and labyrinthine woods. The howling grew louder, and we could hear the sound of footsteps drawing closer. We stumbled through the woods, our fear mounting with every step. The moon cast an eerie glow over the scene, illuminating the twisted trees and the unnatural figure that followed us. The howling was now all around us, a haunting chorus that seemed to come from all directions. With the feeling of dread closing in, we spotted a small, dilapidated cabin in a clearing. It seemed to be our only refuge, and we rushed towards it, our breaths ragged and our hearts pounding. The door of the cabin creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit interior. We entered, slamming the door shut behind us. The sense of relief was palpable, but it was short-lived. As we looked around the cabin, our flashlights revealing the decaying furniture and eerie symbols etched into the walls, we realized that we were not alone. In the corner of the room stood the figure we had seen in the woods, its shape shifting and contorting in a grotesque display. The howling was now coming from the figure, its voice a chilling, otherworldly cry. It spoke in a language we couldn't understand, its words sending shivers down our spines. The air in the cabin seemed to vibrate with an unsettling energy, and we could feel the malevolence in the room closing in. In a panic, we tried to flee the cabin, but the door was stuck, as if held fast by an otherworldly force. The figure drew closer, its presence radiating an unnatural malevolence. We were trapped, our very souls at the mercy of this sinister entity. With a final agonizing howl, the figure lunged at us, and the world around us seemed to warp and twist. The room itself became a nightmarish scene, filled with grotesque and terrifying visions. We could hear the whispers of tormented souls, their voices a chorus of despair. Just as we felt the darkness closing in, the door of the cabin burst open, and we were pulled out into the night. Our savior was a group of locals who had heard the commotion and come to investigate. They fended off the sinister figure, its shape shifting and contorting in a desperate bid to escape. The entity let out one final haunting howl, and then it was gone, vanishing into the darkness of the woods. The locals explained that the entity we had encountered was a suspected Skinwalker, a malevolent force that could assume the form of animals and humans. With their help, we made our way back to the cabin and eventually back to the safety of the town. The experience had left us shaken and scarred, a chilling reminder that the line between folklore and reality could be thinner than we ever imagined. To this day, I can't explain the encounter we had that Halloween night. The suspected Skinwalker and the horrifying events that unfolded in the woods remain a haunting enigma, a chilling reminder that some legends are not to be taken lightly, and that the darkness of Halloween night can hide the most terrifying of secrets. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.